Call the meeting to order. This is the May 27th, 2020 regular meeting of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. Item number 2 on the agenda, seat alternate to active required. We have Commissioner Platt sitting with us this evening. And I'll take just a brief second, take a little privilege here, sitting in the audience, Mr. Jimmy Odom, correct? He's applied for and been recommended as our second alternate, subject to council approval. So welcome, and we'll look for you at the next meeting. Item number 3, hearing of residents. Do we have anybody sign up tonight? All right, no one signed up. Item number 4, consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. Item 4A, minutes from the May 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Item 4B, PC 2020-010, consider and act upon a request for approval of the final plat of the Rhine Valley Subdivision Unit 5, an approximately 15-acre tract consisting of 65 single-family residential lots, generally located approximately 650 feet east of the intersection of Alsatian Way and Mulhouse Drive, Bexar County, Texas. Commissioners, do we need to pull either of these items for discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to have an edit on the minutes.
All right, well, let's pull those off then and put those on the regular act so we can discuss them. So consent agenda now consists of single item 4B, PC 2020-010. Do we have a motion to approve? Rhine Valley, yes. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the Rhine Valley subdivision as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have to ask, who was that? Mr. Ray. All right, so we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Greenwald, second from Commissioner Ray. Any further comments? Well, there is no discussion here. So call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. That's okay. We'll make sure everybody gets a, okay, so that's 7 ayes and no nays. The motion passed. Okay, back to item 4A, the minutes for the May 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Mr. Ray?
In the minutes, it refers to the commissioner, or the chairman as a commissioner, and I feel that it should reflect the chairman as Mr. Outlaw, Chairman Outlaw. Minor technicality.
Where's staff? You understand? Is that okay? Commissioners, any comments or discussion about that? Any other corrections or amendments? Okay, I need a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes with the edit.
Second.
That was you? Okay. I have a I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2020 regular meeting as amended from Commissioner Ray, a second by Commissioner Broad. Any other comments or discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7 ayes and no nays. Motion passes. Okay, item 5 is a public hearing. Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing related to zone change requests and replats with this in its agenda. And we'll start with a staff presentation, then we'll open it up for the public comment and follow that with council comments and discussion. Item 5A, zoning case 2020-003, hold a public hearing. Consider and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately .5 acres of land from single-family residential district R2 to Main Street Mixed Use District, MSMU, located at 619 Main Street, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. Nick?
Okay, that's better. All right, as Chairman Outlaw said, this is a zone change to Main Street mixed use at 619 Main Street. Just for reference really quick, this is a subject property outlined in green. It's a little hard to tell with the streets here. This is Main Street, this is Randolph Ave, and this is Williams Street. So it's right at the corner here of Main Street and Williams. Since this is a public hearing, we sent out public hearing notice mailers 10 days before this meeting to all properties within 200 feet. We got one response actually opposed to the zone change here at 606 Exchange. Just to outline the request once again, it's half an acre zoned from single family residential district R2 to Main Street mixed use. This is a copy of our current zoning map. As you can see, the adjacent properties are all single family residential or right of way. And then in the vicinity, you also have other Main Street mixed use and properties zoned general business. So the proposed zone change should have no adverse impact on adjacent development. This is a copy of our future land use map as part of a comprehensive plan. This lighter pink color is the Main Street commercial. The proposed zone changes in conformance with this comprehensive plan because the Main Street mixed use district permits both single family residential and low intensity commercial, which allows the property owners to take advantage of existing structures out there on Main Street to aid the street's transition into a unique destination with the local independent businesses. For that reason, staff is recommending approval of the proposed zone change because it's compatible with the comprehensive plan and its goals towards the historic downtown Schertz area, and it should have no adverse impact on existing and future adjacent development. The applicant is here also if you have any specific questions.
This is a public hearing, so at this time I'll open the public hearing to any comments from the public. Anyone present would like to comment on this proposal? Just looking. Nobody. I guess I should ask.
Come in on this item? Did we have any emails that came in on this item?
Yeah, that was what, and I should have asked at hearing for residents. As part of the posting, they allow people to mail. No comments. Okay. Thank you, sir. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody. Okay. One more time. Close public hearing. All right, commissioners. Questions, comments, discussion.
Two questions. On the staff report, it says there was one opposed to this.
Yes.
Do we have that? What, was there a reason or just an
No,
X
it was
opposed?
through email very recently that just said, I am opposed.
It also says in here that, just a second. Property is located at 619 Main Street and currently has one residential structure. There's another structure at the back of the lot. Do we know what that is? Looks like a, I don't know what it looks like.
An accessory structure for the residential building, I believe.
So there's not a residential structure, there's two structures on the property.
Yeah, the existing residential structure, and then that one wasn't mentioned because it was an accessory structure at the time for that residential use.
Anyone else, commissioners?
I have a question. Is the current residential structure occupied?
Hey,
Is the current residential structure occupied at this time? Vacant.
Sorry, that's Nick Marquez, the property owner.
So will that structure be utilized for the barber shop, beauty salon, or will it be renovated?
That's the plan for it, yes. The existing structure will be utilized for it.
In all the park? And all the parking issues have been remedied?
So part of the Main Street mixed-use zoning is a reduced parking. So just the 2 spots per the lot, so.
I just wondered if you separated the barber shop and the beauty salon, or combined them as both for the parking.
So it should be just one business. The reason it's listed as that is because that's the land use under the UDC. So the land use within the UDC is, it's called commercial beauty salon / barber shop, just to accompany all of those potential uses. So it's just one business.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioners, I need to apologize. I should have asked after Nick finished his presentation if the applicant would like to make any comments or presentation of...
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, only if you want to, sir. It's not required.
It's up to you.
Maybe if you did just introduce yourself and your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Nick Marquez, 555 Ginsburg, Schertz. Also several properties on Main Street in Schertz. So the plan for the property is the residential structure will become a hair salon. It's currently an existing hair salon right now at 537 Main Street. So that's the use. We're moving them down to a bigger space, renovating to the residential structure to utilize that better. And then I'm also going to add, on the parking question, adding more parking as well. So it's not just on the street. There's currently 5 spaces under a carport. That's good use. And then we're adding another concrete level to kind of even that out. We'll add another 5 spaces. So we'll have more than enough. The structure in the back is for future use, future commercial use that will not require too much parking. Do not have the exact use yet. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Although I think the horse has already left the barn when we approve that property across the street, it still concerns me a little bit that this zoning takes the commercial frontage on Main Street and pushes it back to Exchange, where now instead of being across the street from a neighbor, you're across the street, and not this project in particular, but looking at the future, you know, as we do more of these. And it was a little hard looking at the sector plan to figure out exactly where that Main Street, because I guess it's overlaid with the map I was looking at. Yeah, the crosshatch is the floodplain.
Yeah, it's a little
so
hard
it
to read.
distorts the colors underneath it. But I just want to make sure that that's the intent of the comprehensive or the sector plan in this case, to take that type of zoning. Now, when I looked at it earlier, several months ago, I got the impression we were just talking about the south side of Exchange. Do we have any intent for this to take up all of Exchange, both sides of Exchange with this type of zoning, the MSMU?
I don't believe so. So the comprehensive plan designates it as just on Main Street. And so while you're going to have it bordering other streets because it's just one block over Exchanges, the intention is not for the north side of Exchange to have that same designation. Like you can see, it cuts into just regular single-family residential.
And a lot of these lots along Main Street, I think, while not all of them, a lot of them seem to span that entire block with the frontage on Main and the rear on Exchange. I had another question, but it's gone, and it probably wasn't important. Okay, commissioners, any more questions, comments? And our action tonight is to make a recommendation to City Council to either approve or disapprove this zoning request. So,
I make a motion to approve the recommendation for ZC 2020-003 as written.
I have a motion to recommend approval, correct? From Commissioner Haynes. Have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Greenwald. Any further comments or discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. Motion's approved. Thank you. Okay, item 6, items for individual consideration. 6A, PC 2020-009, consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the Parkland Subdivision Unit 2B, an approximately 7.5 acre tract of land situated in the John Noyes Survey, number 259, abstract number 253, and the Carol M. Gohagan Jr. Survey, number 25, abstract number 142, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas, generally located approximately 3,000 feet southeast of the intersection of Eckert Road and Parklands Way.
All right, just for your reference here, so the subject property, so Unit 2B, is this portion outlined in the green color towards the northeast here, or northwest, sorry, this is Parklands Subdivision Unit 1, where it's starting to be built out for Basie Lane up to the north, and then this is Parklands Way, that main collector that's going to be going through it, or sorry, Parklands Way, right there. So this is, like you said, a preliminary plat for about 7.5 acres of land to create 14 buildable single-family residential lots. All 14 of those lots will be the SF50 designation by the PDD, which means they'll be 50 feet wide by 120 feet deep. Besides that, the plat has been reviewed by the entire development team with no objection, and the plat meets all other applicable requirements in the UDC, and staff is recommending approval of the plat as submitted. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Commissioners? I would like to make one comment here, and not directly so much related to this plat, but the fact that the master plan and other of the parklands, while the developer and the city have done a really good job maintaining the 2 ways in and 2 ways out that are really needed for emergency services, it concerns me that the rear portion of this subdivision is really getting a distance off of Eckert Road, and I understand the way roads get built in Schertz. The city doesn't have the money, but it would sure be nice if we weren't too far from connecting not just this subdivision, maybe Big John Lane or one of these streets that's shown on the future plan. I think it would just be really nice if somehow, somewhere, somebody stepped forward and we didn't go spend the next 20 years, running one, all the way back in that deep corner. Anyway, commissioners, if no one has any further comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve PC 2020-009.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Platt
Second.
and a second from Commissioner Broad. Any further comments, discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. I heard right, that's 7 ayes and no nays. Okay. Item 6B, WA 2020-003, consider and act upon a request for approval of a public wastewater system connection waiver for the Valvoline Express Care subdivision, an approximately 3-acre tract of land generally located at 165, it's not an address, located at 1,650 feet south of the intersection of IH-35 and FM 1103, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas, also known as 5648 FM 1103.
All right, so just for reference, once again, this is the subject property, outlined green. This is FM 1103, and this is towards the north, towards I-35 up there. This is part of a preliminary plat application to plat around 3 acres of land of general business zone land into 2 commercial lots in order to eventually develop an automobile repair minor business. The applicant is also seeking this waiver in order to forego immediate connection to the public wastewater system, an extension of the public wastewater line across the frontage of their subject property on 1103, allowing the applicant to continue utilizing the on-site sewage facilities that exist today. And then once the necessary public infrastructure has been extended to the subject property, the applicant will be required to connect to the public wastewater system. So following analysis of the wastewater extension options, it was demonstrated that construction of the wastewater main from the north was possible. However, in order to connect the wastewater line to the existing system, easements would have to be acquired across public property along FM 1103 at an unknown cost. And due to the unknown off-site easement acquisition cost and timeline, it's staff's opinion that requiring the property owner to immediately connect to the nearest public wastewater system would pose a substantial financial burden and a potential indefinite delay for the development of this particular subject property. This is a memo from the City of Schertz Engineering Department indicating that they have reviewed the request and are in support of the waiver. Also detailing that staff is willing to recommend approval of this waiver with the condition that the property owner enters into the pro rata subdivision improvement agreement, which will include providing their share of the estimated wastewater extension construction cost to the city. And this agreement will be executed before the final plat gets recorded. Staff recommends approval of the waiver due to the said hardship being placed on the property for acquiring those offsite easements and for their willingness to enter into the agreement. I believe we have a representative of the applicant here, and we also have City Engineer Kathy Woodley here if you have specific technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Nick, this is just a temporary waiver until the system is available to them. Is that correct?
That's technically what all the waivers are. It's so that it can forego immediate connection to that public system, and then once the infrastructure gets installed to that subject property, and they have to pull anything else, they're going to have to connect.
Is there an estimation of the timeline of build and when the property is going to be operational as to when the utilities actually get there?
Timeline for when the property gets developed, or for timeline for when the utilities get there?
Well, in comparison to each other. I don't want the business to be operational or running with no connection. So
Sure. So do you want?
What is that timeline?
Do you want to speak onto that? Sure.
So I can give you a long answer or a short answer, depending on exactly why you're asking the question. It's definitely years in the difference. The applicant, the developer, would like to move as quickly as possible, and we will not know the full scope of the extension for at least until next January, when the FM 1103 improvement project gets kicked off.
Nick, could you put the map, the aerial view back up there?
Do you want me to put that in?
I'm going to put up a
While
different...
she's there, nothing about the extension of this sewer system is in this year's plans, correct?
That's correct. This is being added to our capital improvement plan for water and wastewater, but it's added as what we're calling, I think Chairman Outlaw saw the other day, a parking lot project, that it hasn't been slotted in for a particular date because we don't yet know the scope of the project or the cost implications.
Well, that one's good enough, Kathy. Again, I think just spend a few minutes for our newest member over here. For the most part, the extension of wastewater lines the city handles it basically the same way they do roads, okay? As developers develop property, they extend sewer and water and those kinds of services. And what we have up here on 1103 is existing property. And I was going to ask, where's the fall line here, Kathy? Do you happen to remember which way it goes? So it's right about there?
You can see my cursor here. That's about the high point. Everything north of that flows toward the north, and the closest sewer is up here at Walgreens.
Right.
Everything south of that flows toward the south, and the closest sewer is here where the church ties in.
So what will happen is as the properties to the north of this one develop, they'll most likely go through the same to where we'll give them a waiver until eventually the property that's next to the stub out there at 1103, and I thought we'd already done something with that but anyway, so once there's a reasonable distance, because wastewater lines are very expensive, and for a particular lot to have to build all the way back up that hill, or down that hill as it is, would be prohibitively expensive. So we just kind of wait and see, and then eventually all the little dominoes will be connected, and then we'll go in there. Now, I assume the agreement you're talking about, they'll put some funds on escrow, or somehow it'll work, so that we have kind of like a deposit from each of these properties, and so eventually we'll go in there and put in that sewer line, and everybody along there will pay for it. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. And I'm familiar with the area. I own a property right down the street from there. But there's a new car wash that's being built right there, so I didn't know why it had stopped or it didn't extend past that car wash, but I understand the logistics of it.
It's the same rationale. Now, they're on the other side. That's where I asked Kathy where the fall line was, because from that car wash, everything is running the other way. But the same thing will happen. Eventually, it'll get back to where the church there, the big lot you see, and that's because they're already there. That's another thing. But eventually, we'll have a line that runs down the hill as well as going up the hill. My soapbox is, how many millions of dollars are we spending to run that sewer main out to the new plant? And yet, little things where we know the development is coming, we see it, but the city's made no plans to somehow be preemptive and put these wastewater lines in and then charge the owners as they connect. I'm not sure why it's a philosophical thing, I'm sure, but and it's not just here, Commissioner Platt. Pretty much anywhere you go on the other side of 35, it's pretty much the same thing. We're starting to see commercial development, but there are no wastewater lines out there, and so I don't know, how many of these do we see in a year, do you think, Emily? Half a dozen or so? And again, one of these days, all those little dominoes will line up and we'll be good to go. Now, I did want to compliment staff on the memo, okay, because after reading your memo this time, I had no questions whatsoever. It was very plain to me that the right-of-way is, the easement is there, and that they're entering into an agreement that eventually they will pay, or they'll pay up front and we'll use their money. But I did want to say thank you, because that memo, I had no questions after, and you know me, I usually find something. But anyway, but the real fly in the ointment is we have no idea. This is probably, well, no, where's the Mark Roberts thing we just did? It's further.
Mark Roberts is right adjacent.
And we just did that one a few months ago, if I remember right. So, but the problem now is you go north, you're running into that's more, I want to say densely occupied. We have, 2 RV parks or 2 mobile home parks in there. But it's happening, but nobody knows when. So, okay. Commissioners, Anything else?
I just wonder if you could elaborate on what you sent me earlier about the Kahn property. What's going on with that one, and what's the likelihood that we might get a sewer line laid on the Kahn property?
Okay.
I can't elaborate a whole lot. Again, you know, one of the things that you've got is certainly the property owners up there between this property and where the sewer is at Walgreens, unless they come in to develop their property, which then triggers, you know, the platting process, or the development process triggers the platting process, which triggers the construction of public improvements. City does not have the ability to go out and just force someone out of the blue to install improvements or infrastructure. As we understand it, because of our involvement with the TxDOT project, in conversations with various property owners, some of the TxDOT right-of-way acquisition impacts the properties out there, and that may prompt them to construct sewer, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So again, I don't want to speculate on what a property owner may or may not do in terms of development with their property as it relates to the TxDOT right-of-way take.
Is that property the one immediately south of Walgreens?
Yeah, the Kahn property is right here.
How about the next one?
Both these right here, yeah.
Both of those?
Yeah. So again, part of the reason that, as Kathy mentioned, we park some projects, you know, capital improvements projects, is we don't know quite what will happen with various things. You know, one of the issues is, you know, again, property owners may choose to redevelop after the TxDOT improvements are made to 1103. Now you've got this big brand new street that may cause people to redevelop properties and come in and install sewer, and now we fill in those gaps and the problem gets solved. They may not choose to. So again, part of the reason this one got parked is because of the activity with regard to the right-of-way take, its impact on properties, and the potential to prompt them to choose to make those improvements or not.
It's just troubling from my viewpoint that we're sitting here in May of 2020 in a rapidly expanding community that's growing, and people want to be here, people want to move here, yet we're still building an on-site sewer system, and these properties are surrounded by sewer. There's sewer everywhere, but and it's not that we're making these folks build a septic system. They want to build their business, they want to pay for it, that's fine, even if it's only going to last 24 months.
Sure.
Well, they're willing to pay for it. I guess that's a business decision that I'm not privy to. But it's just troubling to me that people are still building a septic system in May of 2020 in a rapidly growing city that should be providing sewer system.
Well, perhaps, and maybe this is the philosophical difference with Commissioner Outlaw and Commissioner Bro, or Chairperson Outlaw and Commissioner Bro, and that is a policy question on the part of council. And so certainly, you know, we can convey this when this item, or you know, to City Council, that the Commission's view is the city needs to preemptively construct infrastructure to serve potential development. I assume both residential and commercial. You know, generally the feedback we've gotten from folks is that they do not want to bear the cost of doing that. Our existing residents and business owners say, look, if somebody new wants to come in, they need to foot the bill generally for extending infrastructure. Otherwise, if the city says it's our practice to do it, you're going to get people coming in out of the middle of nowhere saying, all right, city, I'm coming, extend mine. And so you're going to not only see your water and sewer rates go up significantly, your tax rate would likely go up as well to help cover and offset that. So I certainly can appreciate the frustration that, hey, as a growing community, there are these challenges with infrastructure. Just as a reminder, is what the subdivision ordinance says and what the Unified Development Code says is when a property owner chooses to develop a piece of land, they bear the responsibility of constructing water and sewer lines to serve that property. And so what you get is property owners saying, look, it's not feasible, it's not fiscally viable to do that out in the middle of nowhere. not going to develop on that piece of property, I'll buy one closer in, and certainly that affects what people pay for properties. We hear that all the time. If you have water and sewer, property is generally worth more than a piece that doesn't, because you don't have to bear that cost. So that's the reality. Now, again, I think the direction we've gotten from council is then, rather than tell everybody who comes in, and not our problem, you have to bear the cost, the general feeling is, well, let's look at it on a case-by-case basis. Let's not be overly rigid, and let's see if we can find a solution that has maybe a few win-wins to it, that allows development to start occurring, to provide services for folks that need it in the community, that provides jobs for people and starts, businesses paying taxes would help us pay for things, but then moves us toward our goal of having that infrastructure in place. And so, what I see as the two realities are, you either deny the request, and this property owner decides whether they can afford to construct that sewer line there or not. Again, the general indication is they can't afford to bear that cost, and the project dies and nothing happens. And then at some point, the city says, all right, well, we're going to step in and we're going to construct that infrastructure line, and then development kicks off. The drawback to that for us is we didn't have those properties in and developed, paying taxes, providing services in the meantime. And so really, I think from staff's perspective, this is a bit of a win-win. There are some challenges that make this cost prohibitive. The property owner has said, hey, it's worth it to us to put in septic, put up the pro rata if we need to, so we can get going on development, and that moves the city further along to being able to provide that infrastructure. And so I will say that, back up bigger picture, one of the things that I think has been a frustration for P&Z and even council in the past is we didn't really have a plan. And it was kind of like, well, how are we going to get where we need to be? And so I will say a couple things have happened. Staff, and it's led by engineering, but it's a number of different departments working to update our water and sewer master plan. Here's this vision of where we ultimately need to be. Public Works Department has taken the lead in developing that capital improvements program for water and sewer, and they presented that last Friday that says this is what we're going to build, we think, this year. Here would be the next year's project and the next year, and each year as you finish off, you say, all right, we move everything up, that things switch around a little bit, but it becomes that plan to get there. Obviously, the limitation on that is funding. If you want to do more faster, we need more revenue, but at some point it's a balancing act. And so I think what staff is trying to do here and the developer is, here is what, in light of the situation, a win-win, because we have a lot of need everywhere, and this is a way to move them forward and move us further along the path of having that infrastructure. But certainly, what the city's probably going to do is evaluate, do any of these properties start developing in more of an incremental fashion and start building sewer? Because again, these properties don't have to build sewer all the way down here. They have to extend from the current location across their property. And so if that happens, there's less for the city to do, takes less taxpayer money to do it, and we can get it there quicker. But again, we've got need all over the place. Other side of 35 is an example, and so that's just some of the balancing that you make. But to be clear, the policy per the code is when a developer comes in, that's their responsibility and obligation, and they know that up front. What they have the ability to do is request these sort of waivers and pro rata agreements. So while the city certainly may step in and construct infrastructure to serve folks that are there already and are underserved, thus the need for some loop water lines and things like that to have 2 points of access, or we may choose as a policy decision, working with the Economic Development Corporation, to build infrastructure, a bit of a field of dreams. You build it and they'll come kind of thing. That's really where we do it. I cannot think of a city that when someone says, I want to develop my property regardless of where it is, the city then steps out and constructs that to them. We just can't afford to do it. And so I can appreciate some of the concern and frustration. I think the master plan update, I think the CIP helps us move us along there. But, frankly, in a growing community, and I will say this too, we've talked about the shape of the city. That backward Z is not helpful to us. We're not growing incrementally out from the city. We've got a bunch of different needs. So much like we've talked about roads, well, we need Eckert done. we need Maskey done. Even when we get money coming in, and I appreciate the comment, it's kind of like we got Schertz Parkway under construction, now we've got the work being done on 3009, 1103's going, it's a mess. It's a bit of don't look a gift horse in the mouth. We'll take the 3009 funds and improvement, even if it's bad timing, just to get it. But those are some of the challenges that we've got. So I think from staff's perspective, rather than tell the developer, burden is on you, there's no other alternative, here's a bit of a win-win. It provides additional funds to do this when the timing's right, lets the developer move forward and start making a go of things.
Yeah, I'll throw another argument at you.
Okay.
You mentioned that sewer rates would go up, taxes would go up to support all this. There's always been a complaint in Schertz that the tax burden weighs too heavily on the residents, on rooftops, because there's not enough business in Schertz. Yet again, we're not helping business by coming in. So we could alleviate some of the burden on the taxpayer, on the residential taxpayer, by allowing businesses to come in quicker and spread that tax burden out, not just from the residential owners, but also to the business tax base. If we don't build the infrastructure, it'll take forever. So there is an argument, both sides. There's good points, there's bad points. It's just frustrating sitting up here.
So maybe what I don't understand.
Approving septic systems when, the guy's surrounded by sewer. It's just it's frustrating.
So maybe if I will,
from my
Commissioner
standpoint.
Breaux, I agree with you there, and I think that's the basis of staff's recommendation. This is a win-win. But again, I'm not sure I see the wisdom in the city stepping up and potentially spending, call it $250,000 plus easement acquisition across multiple properties today that may be significant, as opposed to saying, yeah, we know some things are in play, let's wait a bit and see if now some of those property owners step in, make some of those improvements. So potentially we've reduced the cost to $150,000 and we've cut our easement acquisition cost in half. That's the balance. And so again, I don't disagree that constructing that infrastructure can have some of those benefits. And again, if you look at what's been done and what EDC does, that's part of what their role is, to provide those in areas. Again, I think the challenge us is to try to balance that. And so again, I think that's what we're trying to do here. But the wisdom is really, you want the city to step up and spend $250 plus easement acquisition, or maybe $150 a year, 2 years from now, and maybe half the easement acquisition cost. Because if we spend less a couple years down the road, that's money I've got to put toward infrastructure somewhere else. And you can probably all sit here and everybody can think of, oh, I could think of some place to spend that. Or if we're using general fund, I could think of some place to spend that on a road and things like that. So
nothing gets any cheaper.
Nothing gets cheaper. I agree with you entirely.
Look at the South plant.
Yep.
I've just jotted down a couple of notes here, and certainly thank you, Mr. James, and I understand it's a combination of policy and fiscal, but I kind of share the concerns that here we are this day and age, and we're still doing septic. Since they're not doing any physical connections, we won't collect any impact fees from this project, or do we?
Yeah, so they wouldn't be connected. So normally they're connected at time of building permits, but they wouldn't in this case.
Okay.
We wouldn't collect until they connect to the system.
So in the future, when they, when all this works out and they do connect, then they would be assessed at that time, which really doesn't do us any good trying to. But anyway, I wanted to comment about easements, because we're talking about, now with the 1518 widening project, we had to move our utilities, correct? So did we not have to acquire easements to move those utilities? And we just didn't get enough of an easement, or,
So on this 1103 project, we were able to relocate most of our utilities in a way that we didn't need easements. We were able to keep the water line for the most part, even within the right-of-way. TxDOT isn't completely opposed to us having some utilities in the right-of-way as long as they're not under pavement or interfering with any other utilities or any other potential future use.
gotcha.
So we did not need to do acquisition aside from some on Walgreens, I believe, and 7-Eleven.
Okay, well, I just remembered that TxDOT didn't like utilities in their easements, but it sounds like that's not a hard and fast rule, so, okay.
Oh, okay, we did acquire easements on the other side of 1103 across from Walgreens and 7-Eleven for that utility work. And also, as these plats come through, we do acquire easements through the platting process without having to purchase them
Correct,
for even future
yes.
utilities.
I did see that on the plat. This agreement, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten what it's called, but basically where you get money for future development, did the Mark Roberts improvement, did they enter into that same kind of an agreement? No?
No.
Okay.
That is, we did not have that mechanism established, set up at the time. Hindsight,
Yeah.
we would have done that.
Hindsight 2020 is always, yeah. I just wanted to clarify the waiver now, because I think there are a couple of different things out there. We have people, and I'm sure there's one already on this property serving the residents, that they have their own septic system already, and those other existing. Was there not a rule that once sewer is available, as Mr. James pointed out, we can't force people to connect, but isn't there something about when their septic system fails, or has that been done away with?
I don't know that we've made the formal update to the code.
It's got,
Have the septic failure
it has
provision?
both.
Okay.
Code currently has a provision that says something to the effect of if sewer is within a certain distance of your property line or the structure of the sewer. I'd have to go back and look at the wording. It's oddly worded
Right.
and somewhat ambiguous. Then the city can require the connection.
Okay.
To my knowledge, we've never actually forced anybody to do that going forward. But then it also has the other provision as well with regard to sewer.
Yeah, there was one, it hasn't been recent, it's been a while, but one of these properties, I sat on a couple of council meetings where their septic system, but there was an issue with where the stub out was on the or maybe it wasn't Walgreens at the time, but anyway, there was some issue about where the stub out, they didn't put it where they were supposed to put it, and
This was 10 years ago, maybe?
it might have been that long ago.
Yeah, there's some history in this area. So yeah, there are two provisions. One is if sewer is brought up within a certain distance of something, the city can make you connect. To my knowledge, we've never really gotten there. And then there's the other is if your septic fails and you're within a certain distance, we can make it.
And I think that's what the city tried, but it didn't work out because of where the connection had been terminated or something like that.
I wasn't here, then I'll defer to you on why it didn't.
The trouble is everything runs together. I've been in Schertz 30 years. When I was in the Air Force, everything's compartmentalized into where I was at the time. But now, now, the other side of that coin, these folks that we give waivers to, okay, the day the sewer connection is available, are they required to connect, or do they get the same leeway that the other people do?
So again, I'm going to say this, and it's, we're going to have to deal with that when it comes, because at some point it's going to be how that agreement was worded, how the waiver was worded, what it sort of stipulates, And again, I think we would want to be consistent with how we do it, but certainly if we had a septic system in good working order, we may allow additional time for that cost, because as you note, while the platting and the building permit triggers the assessment of fees. They don't pay those impact fees, and those can be substantial. And so again, to hit somebody out of the blue with, well, you've got this, and now you've got this cost, we'd have to work with people, is what I'd say.
Okay, thank you.
I will add for just another level of comfort that we do look at the plumbing on the building permit and require them to construct their plumbing so that when the line comes, they don't have to do a complete redirection of their yard line, so the construction of the tie-in should be reasonably smooth.
Thank you. Commissioners, any more discussion? All right, and if there's no further discussion, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend approval of WA 2020-003.
So you'd be approving it? You wouldn't be recommending approval?
Approve it.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Ray. I'm sorry, I did mean to ask one other question. Does this need to be approved with conditions specifying that? No?
No, the condition was just in the wording to show you more reasoning for it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Greenwald. Any further comments, discussion from Commission? Call for the vote. Mr. Platt?
I vote aye.
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 Aye. Aye. 7-0, motion passes. 6C, PC 2020-008, consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the Valvoline Express Care subdivision, an approximately 3-acre tract of land generally located 1,650 feet south of the intersection between IH-35 and FM 1103, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas, also known as 5648 FM 1103.
So this is the preliminary plat application associated with the waiver you just approved. Just once again, real quick, this is the subject property out in green on 1103. I know we just went over this, but just to outline it again, the application is to preliminary plat this 3 acres into 2 lots in order to develop. One is an automobile repair business. You can see they both have frontage on FM 1103. Right here, the subject property will have a shared access point within Lot 1, Block 1, which connects to this variable with basically a cross-lot access easement. So basically, both of these lots have access right here. Besides that, the plat meets all applicable requirements in the EDC, and staff is recommending approval as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I motion to approve PC 2020-008.
Okay, I missed that one. Was that you, Commissioner? Okay. I have a motion to approve
Second.
from Commissioner Platt, and second from Commissioner Greenwald. Discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 7-0, motion passes. Item 7, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anything, commissioners? 7B, announcements by commissioners, city and community events attended and to be attended, or continuing education events attended or to be attended. Anyone have anything tonight? Seven C, announcements by city staff. None. Since I only printed out 2 pages, I assume that's the end of the agenda, right? So, no further business. This meeting's adjourned.
Mr. Outlaw?